Hey everybody, we're the Pop Culture Philosophers. Thank you for coming to our panel. This is our first panel, so bear with us. A little bit about us. We are a YouTube channel, we are a podcast. We do comic book reviews, we do movie reviews. We try to stay positive. We focus more on what we enjoy, less on what we don't like, though we do have disagreements sometimes that comes through in the show. Is anybody here familiar with the podcast or the YouTube channel at all? Raise your hand. Yeah? Okay. I like that. So we're basically going to be doing a Q&A session. I am Rockin Robbie Billups, that's the name. This is Justified Justin Goldsmith. This is John Hammertime Holshoe. This is Bodacious Brooks the Magnificent. This is Dashing Drew Madsen. We're all over the podcast and YouTube channel. So, does anybody have a question they would like to ask us to break the ice? James Donahoe.
Yes.
I know you. How are you doing today, buddy?
You just have really fine-tuned psychic powers.
Yes, I do.
Doing all right. Just want to know.
James, by the way, has a channel called Janky Reviews. You should check it out.
Primarily Facebook.
No, that's all the promotion you get, buddy.
Yeah, sorry. That's all I'm going to get. Okay. There are certain combinations of comic writers and artists that always work really well together.
Yes.
What are your guys' various artist-writer combination favorites?
Stanley Jack Kirby is the first one that pops up in my head.
Okay.
You've got Wolfman Perez. I like Busick and Perez. Kurt Busick and George Perez. Brooks, you got an artist-writer combo that you
I
like?
like the Claremont Byrne combination.
Claremont Byrne?
His early X-Men. And the other artist also, Lynn Wein.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, Dave Cochran was the other artist.
Cochran.
And then there was what's that, Schmitty or what's his name?
Paul Smith.
Paul Smith, yeah. Yeah, Lynn Wein was a writer of Johnny Size, yeah. Drew?
Just talking.
Writer-artist combos?
Enos and Dylan's always good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Preacher? Punisher?
Preacher, Punisher, anything that they do together.
You guys comic book fans here, anybody? Yeah. What's your favorite comic book?
DC's Kingdom Come.
Oh, nice.
Dude.
I like the artwork.
Yeah, Alex Ross.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, you want to join us on the? I'm just kidding. John, do you got anything that you like?
I think we talked about some of them. I have
John likes Frank Miller and Frank Miller.
I like Neil Adams. There's a lot of artists and writers I like, but I have always trouble saying, oh, I like this artist, I like this writer. But as far as like combos, I have trouble picking out
Yeah.
combos because I'm bad with names.
You should say O'Neill and Adams.
O'Neill
Flip James Adams.
O'Neill and Adams. Let's edit this out of the video.
Justin doesn't read comics because he's stupid like that.
Yeah, you can't read books.
It's not that I'm opposed to it, I just never find the occasion.
It's not for everybody.
That was a good question. What about you? What do you say?
Well, you mentioned Dennis O'Neill and Neil Adams.
No,
of
he
course.
mentioned that one.
Well, there is that. That's
We
a
call him
great
Denny
one.
though because we're tight like that.
Yeah, friend of the show.
Yes, friend of the show.
But I'm going to say, and I'm not sure if this doesn't really necessarily pertain to comics, but Gandhi Tartakovsky and himself. Great artist, great writer.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Powerpuff Girls.
Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack, what's that?
Oh, I don't
That's
know.
a
Some
joke.
show.
Is that like Kangaroo Jack or the Samurai Sword?
Dude, Kangaroo Jack.
Kangaroo with the samurai sword. Oh no.
That'd be kind of close to you,
Jumping and
Sagi.
slashing.
That'd be kind of close to you, Sagi Yojimbo.
I want to thank my man Jason over there for this Cherry Coke Zero. If anybody's never had this, you should totally try it. Any other questions? Movies, comics, music, board games, Price is Right, anything?
Life,
Life, philosophy.
universe, everything.
Yes, sir.
I do have one question. Okay. Have you ever heard, I'm wondering if you guys ever heard about this certain announcement made by DC about they're supposed to be making this new supposed line that's supposed to be targeted at each specific demographic, like it's called DC Inc. and DC.
Yeah, the young adult initiative.
Yeah,
and
a bunch of new imprints for younger
Yeah.
readers.
What about it? Just what we think about it?
Yeah, what do you think about it?
Personally, I think it's always a good thing to do anything to get more people to read. Period. Like reading is the basis of everything to me. It's what it can change the way that you actually perceive reality. just reading something. And I think getting more people to read is a big deal. Getting more people to read these mythological characters that kind of correspond at times to like ancient pantheons or whatever, the way that they would worship Hermes or whatever. We can read some Flash comics, be like, how can I utilize those and like improve my life with them? So anything that opens up the door to new readers, to readers that have never thought about comic books before, adding diversity into the audience, bringing in new readers, I think that's a great thing. So I'm super pumped.
One of the things I remember is last year when I came here to this exact con, Mike Grell was actually at a panel here, and I remember like before I left the panel for something else, we were mostly waiting for like a cosplay contest or something like that. I remember he made one statement about how one of the things that he knows that they don't do anymore was make comics that appeal to like the younger demographic and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely.
So when I heard about this news about DC doing something like this, it just sort of came into my head like there was some form of coincidence. Like, oh, I think we just answered Mike Wells' question.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that the industry's really struggled to deal with is keeping the audience alive by bringing in new readers. Because a lot of people know these superheroes. They know who Batman is, they know who Deadpool is, they know who the Justice League and the Avengers are. But a lot of kids don't read the comics. They watch the movies, they play the video games, they buy the action figures, they do all that stuff, but they don't read the comics. And so anything to get people into actually reading, because this is where those characters live. This is where they evolve. This is where they change. Like everything you enjoy in those movies, it all came from decades of people like Mike Grell and Chris Claremont bringing that life to these characters. Drew, do you have anything?
Yeah, part of that too is the fact that they're launching so many new imprints is that they're getting more diversity in creators. Because one of the guys that I noticed, he's going to be doing a Teen Titan. I first noticed because he would post on like great art on like DeviantArt, and he always talks about how he loves Teen Titans, and his art was always great. Like I was like, man, it'd be great to see him on a book, and he's a younger guy, and he got announced as the artist on one of these Teen Titans books, and that's just great to see more young blood, because I know DC does the artists and writers workshop all the time, and the fact that they're actually going to be not just DC, but their writers and artists themselves are going to be seeing the dividends from their work is great, because now, because a lot of the same writers and artists, they might just like jump books or jump companies, but now you're going to be seeing newer guys that get their own shot. And it's like, hey, it may not be like fully DC, but it's going to be DC Inc. and kids, and I mean, I'm probably going to buy the Titans book because I love his art.
Yeah, absolutely. So bringing in new creators, new readers, we're super, super excited for them.
I'm so kind of intrigued actually.
Yes.
So I have a question. What do you guys think about the philosophy of Star Wars versus the philosophy of Star Trek?
Oh.
Do we have enough time for that?
Yeah.
That's a whole other.
Let's start with Justin. Justin is a big trekker.
Okay, so that is a very expansive question.
Try to refrain from bashing Star Wars if you could.
I like Star
Don't
Wars.
set him up negatively.
Star Trek is more about positive outlook for the future, like what we can be, whereas Star Wars is more of you could almost think of it like a parable, I guess, because it's something that you're kind of looking back on, not just because it was written and made in the 70s, but because it takes place a long time ago. It's kind of got a feel like an old story that...
It's like a myth.
It's a myth, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of, I mean, they're both about hope, so they're similar in that way, but...
Star Wars, I definitely think encapsulates the hero's journey a whole lot more than Star Trek does, because Star Wars was able to focus on one big epic saga. This whole thing about the Empire versus the Rebellion, and then you got the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker. There's a lot of repeating mythological tropes that happen in Star Wars that are very easy, thinly veiled, and just right there on the surface that anybody can take it, and like there's richness there. Star Trek is, to me, first of all, a bigger world that was created. But with the philosophy, it's more about what can man do. When you were talking about Star Wars kind of looks behind. It's definitely more fantasy-based. Star Trek looks at what we could possibly do. It seems to have a more progressive look on humanity.
Now, Star Trek is like, we've like solved all the problems that prevent us from doing anything, so now all that we have left to do is go out and find something.
Yeah, we go and explore. They took care of hunger, and they take care of
Did you ever watch
poverty.
Deep Space Nine? I'm not sure that's...
Well, well.
Yeah, boy did I.
You might want to watch that if you haven't yet.
We love DS9.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
think
the best.
the Ferengi are the most, the race that kind of is most human.
Yeah.
You know, the
That's what you think
word
of us.
Ferengi, when they came up with that race, the word, it comes from a word called Fereng or something like that.
Well,
It's
named
like
after Lou
Arabic.
Ferrigno.
It's like an Arabic word that means Westerner. So they're literally supposed to be us today.
A caricature
Yeah.
of Americans.
DS9 gets way more complex than like TNG did, and definitely TOS and all that stuff. I like DS9 a lot, but even just the Federation, like they've taken, like humanity has solved a lot of their problems. But then of course we go out into the universe and the galaxy, all that, but then there's conflict there. And I do like the different races and how they work together in the Star Trek world, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Cooperation.
Yeah, cooperation.
Concur.
John concurs. John doesn't really like Star Trek, but he does love Star Wars.
I love the original series, and I love Next Gen. I haven't really watched all the other shows. I really like the Orville, the one with
That's neither Star Wars nor Star Trek.
It's definitely very Star Trek-ish.
Yeah. Okay. Do you like Star Trek? Who's your favorite captain?
I like
What?
Picard, of course.
Picard? Oh yeah, okay. Rock on. We can dig with that. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Now,
What's your costume?
Oh, I'm just a wrestler. I just threw a bunch of things together.
Just a
Those
wrestler?
nice to
What's your
keep.
name? What's your stage name?
I'm just going to go with Chuck.
Okay, I like that.
Chuck the Keyblade artist.
Keyblade master.
Yeah.
I like that.
Friendship is magic. And I'll
Friendship,
show you it.
magic. And he's the champion of magic and friendship.
Mine's Mercy Barrera.
Right.
Keyblade unlocks the door to darkness.
My question is, like it goes on with like movies and cartoons and series and even video games, such as, for example, right now they're coming out with a Spider-Man video game for the PS4. And the thing is, what they're going to do with this one is they're going to not focus on a comic book story or anything that came from the movies. This is going to be a Spider-Man video game with a story of its own, missions of its own, and all that stuff. How do you feel when things like that, where the writer of whatever, whether it's a series of video game or something, doesn't go completely with the story that you're most familiar with, like if it came from a comic book or not?
Yeah, if it's good, I don't care.
Okay.
If it's a good, engaging story, I really don't care. I know I'm not the biggest video game guy, so maybe one of these guys will have a different answer and more directly responding to that. But if they change anything, like if they make a Venom movie and they make some changes, I don't care as long as it's a good movie. If I have fun watching it, if I enjoy, if something resonates inside of me, I'm going to enjoy it. I don't really care about subtle little tiny changes here and there. Sometimes I get bothered by things. They never once said Avengers Assemble in the Avengers movies. That kind of pisses me off. But you get over it. Big deal. It didn't make Avengers any worse of a movie, and it didn't make Age of Ultron any better of a movie.
This again.
But
so it's kind of like another example would be like in Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad movie, like
Academy Award winning.
if it's like editing or special effects,
Beat Star Trek, I might add. Beat Star Trek.
Suicide
Squad is like
I want to
collection
recount.
of scenes more than a movie.
Yeah. But I think that, like, for instance, if I get a Spider-Man video game, I don't want to have the same experience I did reading Craven's Last Hunt. I want something new, and I want to know what it feels like to be Spider-Man. Drew plays video games. Do you have
I
some?
do play video games. The game you're talking about, the game you're talking about is being made by Insomniac Games, and I'm very appreciative of their work because they basically already made superhero games already. with what was it? He had electricity powers.
Black Lightning?
No, no, it was Infamous. Yeah, Infamous 2, and Infamous.
Oh, that one.
That's
Yeah,
a good guess,
and
though.
they made it, yeah, good, yeah. They, but they've already made superheroes, and now that they're getting, and they're not ripping something like that, because you have video games, I think it was Marvel Ultimate Alliance, where it was like, I think it was the second one that was straight up Civil War, and it's like, and that was alright, yeah, it was a beat 'em up, it was fun, and it's like, but they didn't really they didn't really go new directions, it was just Civil War. But I'm excited for Spider-Man just because I trust the development studio, and I think that they've already shown that they can do great world-building superhero games, and the fact that they're getting a chance to do it with Spider-Man, and they're going to have Miles Morales in it, they already showed him in the trailer, and
That's awesome.
And they're doing, what's the villain's name? Negative Man?
Yeah.
Mr. Negative.
Mr. Negative,
Mr.
yeah. I haven't seen a ton with him, but they're really just going to be able to build him up. So maybe we'll see him in comics down the line, because it'll probably be popular because it looks great.
Cool. Super cool. Does that answer your question, Chuck?
That does.
Anything else? Anybody? Mr. Allen, who, by the way, does all ages comics. You should go check out his booth downstairs, Dance Panda Comics.
Thank you.
So when you're deciding what podcasts, what topics you want to speak about,
Yeah.
Can you speak any on how y'all find a balance between what you want to do and what you think I will actually listen to?
We don't care what you would actually listen to.
Okay.
We're just doing
He just picks whatever he wants and like makes us talk about it.
John has input
I have input on what's on the show.
on the shows,
Or
yeah.
input to the question.
I didn't want to talk
Yeah.
about wood for an hour, but
But oddly enough, we had, like, that was one of the most fun podcasts for us to do, and it turned out really well.
It's on YouTube, The Wonderful World of Wood. It's really fun.
Yeah. Sounds stupid.
I remember that.
But it's great.
I think I had cherry, I think.
Yeah, we each picked a different type of
Solid.
wood, and we did like this wood report.
Yeah, we talked about woodpeckers.
We talked about
I learned a lot
woodpeckers.
about woodpeckers.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
did
doing a
too.
book report.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we just come up with something that we want to make sure it's not going to bore. Can we do an hour show? That sometimes, unfortunately, turns into a 2-hour show. So I apologize for some of the long shows they run a little long. No, we just
kind of like, we come up with lists, and there are some ideas that we've had that we're about to do a Westerns episode. That was an idea we had back in the Smile or Else days. Like before pop culture philosophers even was an idea, we were already planning on doing Western stuff. And there have been times though where like we did an 80s horror podcast that kind of like blew up for us, and like it was our first taste of like kind of getting a lot of notice from something, and so we did a 70s horror podcast. So because we're like, hey, yeah, but horror podcast is something we're into. We try to maybe sometimes time things out, to a certain thing. Sometimes we fail miserably. We decided we were going to do a Ridley Scott podcast for when Alien Covenant came out. That just released like 2 weeks ago. So sometimes things like that. But we do try to think about what you guys would like, but mostly just what we want to talk about.
Yeah, and the hardest part about it though is really boiling it down to where it can fit in an hour, because it is a problem coming up with enough material for an hour, but it's also more of a problem to boil stuff down
Yeah.
to segments.
Sometimes we think we don't have enough material for a whole episode, and then we're like, we're going to have to cut 30 minutes out of the show.
Yeah,
Which
like-
we don't cut anything out of the shows anymore. They're all live.
Yeah.
So when John messes up, he messes up.
a lot.
And when I mess up, we mess up. And when
I never mess
yeah,
up.
Vince never does. He's the
It's
superstar.
always
On our 80s TV podcast, I was just talking to Robbie about it outside, that I reminded him that he cut my whole MTV segment out.
Yeah.
We don't cut anything out unless it's just.
That was still right before we had started.
Yeah.
The all live thing. But
It was like an hour and a half long.
that's a
or
good
something.
question.
I'm excited for the fantasy one.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was
I-
a long time coming.
Yeah, well, it's going to get delayed again.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's not going to get delayed.
I've been harping about that for a while. I'm
These
excited.
two have wanted me to do a fantasy podcast for so long, and I'm like, I'll talk about Harry Potter. They just want an excuse to go on about Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time.
That's why I'm part of it. No, I love Harry Potter too.
Anything else? Yes.
Well, two things. The thing you said about having trouble trying to find something to talk about in pop culture. I mean, if you guys are really having trouble trying to find things to talk about, you know where to find me. Because I've been on YouTube since 2005. I look up everything. That's probably one of the first times I ever discovered what Atari was.
Yeah? Oh yeah.
But-
We love Atari.
We've got pages and pages of show ideas, most of which are probably never going to air. So, I think
We yeah, right now we are pretty much got our schedule up till June, and then we got the ideas for the second half of the year. We're trying something new. We're going to start we're going to do a podcast about a year, and our first year we're going to do is 1982 because we just think that's the best year ever. And The Thing came out that year.
E.T.
E.T., Blade Runner,
Poltergeist.
Come on.
The greatest sci-fi film of all time, Tron.
Blade Runner did come out that year
It
too.
wouldn't be near
Tron.
as good if it wasn't in Kingdom Hearts 2.
So we're gonna try the year idea, and I don't know, maybe that one. But yeah, we got plenty of ideas. Like I said, we did a show about wood. We did a show about wood.
and we made it interesting as shit.
We're about to do our 4th episode of a show, the series that's all about things named Ben. All about the Benjamins, part 4 coming soon. Right?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah, part 4. Goodness.
I don't even know that many bands. I don't know.
Well, it was
We'll
one of my
never
questions.
run out of bins.
Yeah,
That's
never.
one thing I'm pretty sure of. We'll never run out of bins.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one of my questions is that with this new things coming out, with people trying to compete, with trying to do, cinematic universes, trying to compete with Marvel and stuff like that, do you think that one of the problems when it comes to competing with Marvel Cinematic Universe is that they try to assume that, they would assume that it being a cinematic universe might mean they were making money without realizing that the real reason why that stuff happened was because they had long-term planning. And they try to make sure that they don't immediately call it a cinematic universe before
Yeah. And
everything's new film.
okay.
It's like the Mummy.
Yes.
Yes.
The monsters.
Like The Mummy, or even what's happened with some of the DC films. Like, the first thing that Marvel did was they said, we need to make some good movies. So they made a good movie called Iron Man. They made an okay movie called Incredible Hulk, but then Phase 1, and we're doing this MCU rewatch that we're going through on our YouTube channel right now, and Phase 1 is just phenomenal. They got great talent, like great actors, but great script writers, great directors. They got Kenneth Branagh to do a Thor movie, guys. That like blows my mind still. He wouldn't come back for a sequel.
Yeah.
Kenneth Branagh doesn't do sequels. If he did, it would be Hamlet 2. And I'm kind of pumped to see that. If what his idea would be.
Hamlet Returns.
Yes, Hamlet Returns
called
and
Hamlet
Begins at the same time. And Hamlet Forever would be the third one. It would kind of cap the whole thing. I think you can't.
Hamlet New York.
You can't jump ahead too quick. You can't just try to rush into it. You really just Marvel built that momentum by having a string of really good, solid movies. And then in Phase 2, it seems like they start getting a little bit more interfering, and they start like, I don't know, like they lose Joss Whedon, they lose Edgar Wright on Ant-Man. It just seems like, don't hire these guys if you don't want them to do what they do. Like, I feel like DC spent too much time trying to build up into something, and Wonder Woman's been their most successful movie so far, and that movie is just trying to make a good Wonder Woman.
DC really tripped up when they made the cinematic universe separate from their TV universe. I really think
I wouldn't
they
go
should
that far.
fill that.
Well, I don't think that would have worked.
They just trying to put so much, just because they put so much effort into the TV stuff and all the comics and stuff too, but then you try to, like, oh, we're also gonna do all the, like the Marvel shows are in the cinematic universe.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart because it lets everybody focus on the same stuff as
Yeah.
opposed to.
Ultimately, though, I think DC's problems, film-wise, we talked about on the Ridley Scott episode. If you hire a director, and now Disney's doing this, let your director do what he does.
Yeah.
Don't interfere. The problems with Suicide Squad, the problems with Batman vs Superman, the problems with Justice League are all traced back to studio interference. Let the director do, or hire a different director.
Yeah.
But don't hire a different director halfway through the movie. But hire the director if you're confident with him. I actually like Zack Snyder. I love Watchmen. He's made missteps, but I like Zack Snyder. And friend of the show. don't research any of that if I say friend of the show. I think the problems are not DC's trying to build a big universe, film universe. I think DC's problems are Warner Brothers sticking their fingers in things, and they gotta let. If I hire a director, man, let the director do his thing.
Also, don't get ahead of yourself. Make a good movie.
Sticking your finger into things too.
I mean, honestly, I think the one thing can be summed up, especially, because I remember watching Nostalgia Critic's review of Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, I'm looking at the review, and I'm thinking, and my thoughts are in my head, and I'm thinking to myself this, okay, here's the thing about Suicide Squad. You have all this money on the table that's just sitting there right in front of you, and what do you use that money for? You never try to use that money for all the potential you could have done, just trying to win back the people that are already feeling skeptical because of Batman vs. Superman, and you wasted on possibly incompetently made reshoots. And why I say incompetently, because one thing about reshoots, they can sometimes happen one way or the other. That's just one thing you have to deal with, because I know that same thing when it came to Rogue One and the upcoming Han Solo movie. But you see, I'm guaranteed that with those reshoots, I can guarantee there's some form of confidence in this. But with this is trying to compete against Marvel's cinematic universe, and yet they're kind of assuming the short-term things rather than thinking about the long-term.
Right.
So when you're wasting all that money, you have no idea how much people you've got so riled up on, because the fact that they see all that potential squandered just because they panicked when they saw the reception of Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah. I think they freak out too much. They just need to hire people, good writers, good directors, great actors, and make good movies.
Yeah, I think I'm more excited now because they actually are kind of letting the directors do the things. There's been some early buzz about Aquaman.
Yeah, there has been. Very positive.
James Wan, what is he known for?
Saw.
Saw, The Conjuring,
Yeah.
Great, pretty good horror movies, and then Fast 7. So you have
They're all that against
action and
Oh,
horror.
don't forget Dead Silence, homie.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
No, we
no,
forget
yeah,
that.
we forget. But it's like great horror elements, great action, and then he also had the touching thing because Fast 7 is where Paul Walker died, and so he had to have that touching tribute. So he's shown he can handle emotion and horror elements and action, which is all things that should be in an Aquaman movie, and I'm glad it's working out.
Yeah.
Oh, and water. There should be some water.
And-
There should be some water.
Should be in the desert.
There should be a giant squid and token.
Yeah, I wonder how they're going to pull that off.
I mean,
to be honest.
Yes.
So you were speaking earlier about cinematic universes or creating cinematic universes. So the purchase of Miller TV by Netflix, do you guys forecast anything positive coming out of that?
Miller
On the
TV.
little screen?
Yeah.
Mark
Mark
Miller's the
Miller,
guy
Blair,
that did Kick-Ass,
Kingsman.
Hit Girl,
Oh,
Kingsman.
yeah.
So there's launch.
It's going to be really weird.
I want a
So
good
they-
Huck
they have
movie.
to-
Hub, that's what I was thinking. But I know that they're doing the Magic Circle or Magic Group, or the Order of the Magic or something like that. Yeah, it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be a new property, not in print, but I was just wondering if you guys, it's not a Marvel or DC title, so.
Yeah.
that-
Do
I
they
follow
have
a
a
lot of
plan
that
to
stuff.
connect it all together?
I'm not sure.
Because
There
his
hasn't
stuff
really
could
been
be
much.
connected.
Yeah.
Like Mark Millar does it kind of like that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it could be, and maybe it isn't. But like, of course, Kick-Ass and Hit Girl all exist.
Right.
This deal doesn't involve the Kick-Ass stuff
No,
or Secret
No.
Service.
it's just up.
It's just.
But he's done some really good work
Yes,
that I
he
would
has.
really, really like to
Yeah.
see done as short form television shows or even a movie. Like you were talking about Huck.
Yeah.
Huck would be a great one.
Yeah.
Super Crooks would
Oh,
be
yeah.
really cool, like
Yeah.
an Ocean's 11 type
Right,
vibe to it.
right.
I like what he's been doing with Miller World because he's taken these ideas like Ocean's 11 meets superheroes and it's Super Crooks, or Forrest Gump meets superhero and it's Huck.
Would you
And so he's
remember Chrononauts?
Chrononauts,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was freaking awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that one, because they want to
Oh,
do
okay.
that, yeah, Fox
Really?
wants to do that one. Chrononauts would be cool.
Superior's already.
I'm pretty sure that's
Oh,
the one
really?
that got Chrononauts got sold before the comic came out.
Yeah, he did,
Yeah.
yes, he did.
Yeah.
Chrononauts got sold as soon as it left his hand.
It's like, oh, you like this?
He
Huh?
did like that.
He's done a lot of good stuff for himself too, man, like
Yeah.
creating worlds and being able to
He was the architect of the whole Civil War series, wasn't he?
yes, I mean, he wrote Civil War.
So, I
He
mean,
created the Ultimates, and
Yeah.
that, it was the iteration of the Avengers that led into the movie.
Yeah.
And so he's the reason, him and Brian Hitcher, the reason Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury.
Right.
And he said that basically what it was, I love his thing about Nick Fury, is because he said, when it came time to do the Ultimate books and it was time to redo Nick Fury, he goes, Nick Fury was the epitome of what cool was in the 60s. He was based on like James Bond. What is cool now? Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
I think it worked.
As far as forecasting what Netflix is going to do with it, they've had a really good run with their original stuff so far.
Yes, I'm really enjoying a lot of the stuff that they're coming out with.
Now,
There's some
Yeah,
But I think the
That's my
majority
man.
of it-
Iron
Well,
Fist is hilarious though.
That no way that man could beat a dragon. No way. No way that dude could beat a dragon.
I think John just recently watched that. I think
Yeah,
that's like,
not great. Not great. That movie, no.
But then they've got like Altered Carbon, which if anybody's watched that,
that's
good.
Stranger
It's good.
Things.
awesome. Stranger Things.
The new Queer Eye, which is amazing.
I didn't know that was
Not even
Netflix.
kidding,
I'm
that
gonna
show's awesome.
binge that.
They tend to do better with their series than they do with their movies, their original movies. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's me.
So they've also
Yeah,
done,
who asked you to speak?
Nobody.
there was also another purchase of Valiant, right, from like
Yeah.
Chinese media
Yeah.
outlet. So there's like, okay, so I don't follow a lot of the Marvel stuff. I mean, I did back in the day. Most of my titles are usually Boom and Image and stuff like that. Because I used to like superhero books. I don't really like them that much anymore.
Uh-huh.
Not that there's anything wrong with them, but I like the original content that all these individual publishers put out.
For
So
sure.
That was kind of what I was leading up into, is that if like an original content creator is making a story to like potentially sell off to like a media company, is that good for the comic industry, or is that not good for the comic industry? Because you get people that are there for the money grab. Which, I mean, I understand people got to eat, but
Yeah.
you know, you don't wanna
Ideally, I would
condemn
like
it,
to
yeah.
say that it's good for the industry.
Yeah.
Because I kind of want to be like, well, anything that would get someone interested in reading the comics.
Sure.
Unfortunately, a very popular Thor movie doesn't mean people are going to be reading the Thor comic. They really should, because it's very good right now, but that doesn't always necessarily translate into comic book sales. But it is good for the brand of the company. Like the Valiant stuff, I would be really excited to see that.
Yeah.
But I would like that to develop very slowly as a shared universe type thing. Like, give us a good Bloodshot movie.
Right.
Which I heard Vin Diesel's kind of
Diesel,
attached
yeah.
to, which would be crazy. Expo Man War could be a cool movie.
Yeah.
There's some really great properties at Valiant. And they're doing that Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe thing, the web series.
Yeah,
That's the wrong idea, to me. And it's got JDF in it, and I love JDF. But that's the wrong idea. I think just making a good Bloodshot movie is the best thing, because Marvel didn't, like when they were making Iron Man, they weren't thinking 10 movies ahead of that.
No.
They were just trying to make a good movie. So hopefully, I would like to say it's good for the industry, but the industry needs some more swift kicks into the rear, I think, to get kicked back into gear.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, Seahawks fan, huh?
Yeah, Seahawks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How'd they do last season? Oh, sorry.
How'd the Lions do?
Better than the Lions.
Hey,
They were above
I'm sorry, I take it
500.
back.
They beat the Super Bowl champion winning. Anyway,
There you go.
that's right, them Eagles.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm glad the
Patriots.
Patriots lost one.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a
This
Patriots
guy get his
fan.
question
And then
about
when I started running.
Brooks is like,
I
you
don't hate
promised
the
me
Eagles
no
though. I
football
really
talk.
do like them.
Let this
First
guy
one
get
is
his
my
question
dude. I
out.
just wanted one.
I just started
Okay,
putting
no,
this
you're
on,
good.
right?
Yes,
Be
Brian.
good for
Well, I was
once.
thinking you made a comment about how sometime you miss on your timing for the podcast, and so what I was thinking is that we haven't had Fantastic Four like in quite some time, and do you think that's maybe because you guys haven't done a Fantastic Four podcast?
If it is,
So,
I need to rectify
If you
that.
agree with that, do you feel
We
bad
did
about
do
it?
a movie review on Fantastic Four.
We did a movie review for the last Fantastic Four movie. Brooks is right. We did do that. And we talked about Fantastic Four on a podcast that you were actually a part of,
We did.
the Jack Kirby
We
podcast.
did, yeah.
So,
We can talk more about it.
yeah. If it is our fault for not doing a Fantastic Four podcast, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But we don't think that our viewers really respond so well to that.
Okay.
Because we really consider what you guys are going to want to see or hear. See or hear.
If you can see
I
the
appreciate
podcast,
that.
that's really impressive.
Yes.
Synesthesia, is that what it's called? Where you see sounds?
Yes. Yes.
Isn't that NERD album, Seeing Sounds?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. No one ever really dies.
I have a question for the whole panel. What's your favorite comic or character?
Fantastic Four for me. Easy.
Ooh, main, I'd say if we're talking like a big publisher, Batman. Smaller publisher, Grant. Hunter Rose, Grant.
Go with the comedian, the Watchmen.
Well, my favorite series consistently rated an X-Men, but my favorite character is Thor.
Favorite character? I was out of comics for a long time, and getting back into it, it was Grant Morrison's Batman. So I have to say, Batman for that. But as far as like someone who I think is less loved but still really great, Animal Man.
Oh, nice.
Another Grant Morrison.
And yeah, more Grant.
Yeah.
Jeff Lemire was good too.
Yeah. Grant Morrison.
Who is this Grant?
I'm a Grant Morrison mark, by the way.
So am I.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how we bond.
on the
is
show.
talking about
You ever
Grant
watch
Morrison.
X-Men?
That's the first time I ever heard someone say Mark.
Yeah. Oh no, wrestling. If you John Cena mark, yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's a good question. Even Justin had an answer to that one.
Yeah, I've read it some.
Keep giving us softballs.
I gave him a Star Trek versus Green Lantern book. And it's still in his bathroom. I don't know if he's ever read it.
I don't read in the bathroom. Like
Star
you
Trek
do.
Green Lantern?
Yeah, but you didn't have to put it in your bathroom.
Why is it in the bathroom?
Yeah, you put it in your bathroom.
It's got moisture damage.
It's fine.
Shows how much of a Star Trek fan he is.
Oh, whatever. This is what the show's like if you guys have never listened to it, I promise. It's just like this.
I mean,
Just as excruciating. Anything else? Surely someone can come up with something. Oh, it's James again.
That's fine.
Nah, for real, man. What's up?
Well, okay. Whenever we go to movies, we all look for certain things when we see a movie, right? Like me personally, I like to make sure that the filmmaker actually cared about what they were doing. It had heart to it. It has a soul to it, basically.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. What kind of things do you guys look for when you're watching? What do you hope to see? What makes it good or bad?
That's a wide question.
I think the thing that I look for most in a movie, which I'm just figuring this out in the last couple of years, is character development. Because, like, even watching Iron Fist, it wasn't very great. but the character of the brother, Ward. I found him really, really interesting for some reason.
He had an odd story. He got accidentally addicted to heroin.
Yeah.
Right?
Pills.
Accidentally. He just tripped and fell into it. Oh no, needle!
That poor guy.
But like, I'm also an actor and a filmmaker, so I try not to, and I mention this on the podcast sometimes when we do what's the worst blank.
Which we rarely do. Because the answer is always Justin Goldsmith.
There's always something redeem. Well, 99% of the time, there's something that can redeem a bad movie, and usually it's character development, and that's how I end up liking crappy movies sometimes.
Yeah, character development is very, very important. You got to know who your characters are. Those characters have to grow, they have to change, they have to evolve. It has to resonate somehow inside of me. I love fun movies. Thor Ragnarok was a fun movie, but nothing about it resonated with me. I didn't feel an impact from it. So I want movies that make me feel that impact, but are also very fun. I want to feel like I didn't waste 2 to 3 hours of my time that evening that I'll never get back, like when I watched Hitman or Fred Claus or something like that, right? And I love, because nowadays it's really easier for people to tread that line between a fun, adventurous movie, but something that's also very poignant and moving. Guardians of the Galaxy, V1 and V2, for instance, like they merge those worlds really together, so that's what I'm after. What are you guys after when you watch a movie?
We keep bringing up Iron Fist. One of the first times
Iron Fist panel by PC.
Yeah, one of the first times that I had like a really negative reaction to something, like could not stand it, and it was like, and Robbie saw that I had such a negative reaction to it. He's like, "Hey, I want you to write a review of it." So and I didn't know how it was going to go, and then like 5 paragraphs later, I found out exactly how I felt about the show. And it's action, and if you have a character who's supposed to be world-class, like universe-class martial artist, the man can't study his fight scenes 20 minutes before a shoot. And when you and they tried to help it out a little bit with the quick cuts. I think in the infamous file room scene, there were like 100 different cuts. They can't just show him doing action because he doesn't know how to do action. And that's why I love, we got into it recently about Mission Impossible. They're great action movies. I love the action. It's very entertaining. But if you're supposed to be based around something like, we know Blade Runner is supposed to be incredibly technically brilliant. Music.
Be careful.
What? No. Technically brilliant, like it's beautiful looking, beautiful sounding. And that's why 2049, like, critically it was great. And it's like, but it's like, and that's what it should be. It should be a technical marvel. But it's like, and then you go back to Iron Fist. Should be an amazing action show.
Yeah.
Didn't have it.
I was a little disappointed by some of the action there, but at the same time, I thought you were being a little hard on it. Yeah. I think people are a little hard on Iron Fist.
Yeah.
That's just honestly. I mean, yeah, I can see that for sure.
Is it
I did have some
unwatchable because
positives.
of the story or that bad action?
It doesn't fit
Really
the
bad
character.
action.
It didn't fit the character, man.
What? I'm not saying it did.
There was no development.
They should have got somebody that knew Kung Fu.
Yes.
I actually thought that Iron Fist was a lot more watchable than season 2 of Daredevil.
I can see some of that.
I thought season 2 of Daredevil was much less watchable. It was
I thought
very hard to get through.
the first 3 episodes were great. Like all the Punisher
season
stuff
2?
of season
Yeah.
2, yeah, and
Yeah.
then I hated the Electro
After
stuff.
that, it was.
I
it
think
was
they
very
were.
hard to get through, but
They ruined
Iron Fist I
Electro
could get
for me.
through.
Yeah, yes, sir.
All right, trying to stay on the same topic, but to dive a little deeper. I'm thinking about how does a movie that comes out and initially bombs, but eventually becomes a cult classic. And the one movie that really hits me like a ton of bricks on this is Office Space.
Uh-huh.
So, it bombed initially, but now, like, everyone knows who it is. So how does that happen? Is it, a bad movie, but eventually it catches on, or what?
Maybe a great movie, poorly marketed.
Okay.
One of my favorite examples of this is something like The Thing or Blade Runner. Like, those movies are classics, right? Like, and people highly respect those movies. When they came out, they tanked. They didn't make any money. But in 1982, see that? We're talking about that. E.T. came out. And so, like, everybody wanted E.T. Everybody wanted, like, this feel-good, family-friendly movie. Then you don't want The Thing or Blade Runner. They make you just want to, like...
Just like you.
should
Get more killing.
So there's all kinds of factors, but I think sometimes it's just the right movie at the wrong time, things like that. But I would rather have a movie, I'm sure the filmmakers wouldn't, but I'd rather have a movie that's made, that's really, really good, that takes some time to build up its following. Anything? John? You guys
No, I'm in the same boat. A lot of times it's just marketing or timing. I'm going to jump to music, but there was an album that was released, Pinkerton, which is Weezer's second album. Well, the marketing, let's back up. It was a great album. It's a phenomenal album. It's critically acclaimed. The sales were crap because it wasn't marketed well, because the Pinkerton Detective Agency was suing the record company saying, you stole our name. Well, the name is the guy from Madame Butterfly, Admiral Pinkerton, so that's where it draws the music from and everything. That's the inspiration for the album. So it had nothing to do with the Pinkerton Detective Agency, the terrible detective agency that no one cares about in the UK. If anybody works on it, apologize. They have a division in the States, actually. Anyway, so it was not marketed properly, and it tanked, even though it was a critically acclaimed and amazing album. So a lot of it has to do with
bad PR.
Yeah, just bad PR. And then, well, the studio was so worried about, or the publisher, about marketing this album when they're fighting this lawsuit, and they may have to change the name, or they may have to pull the album, or delay the album. There's so much hesitation, and it was this amazing, critically acclaimed album, and it tanked. And now even the musicians that made the album are hesitant about doing the stuff live because the album didn't sell well.
Yeah.
When it was a great album.
I'm very glad we live in a day and age, though, now with streaming services and just even the home library market out there, because that wasn't something that existed really, even when we were first growing up watching these movies in the 80s. We had to watch them like on Fox when they came on Saturday afternoon or something. So it's nice that people can discover these things later on. And
Yeah, if you make something good, I think people will find it eventually,
We're
as long
gonna,
as it's good.
we're going to have to wrap up to one more question. And this gentleman has been, what's your name again?
Nicholas Ferreira.
Nicholas. Nicholas has been the star today, has he not? Seriously. I'm glad I came to this
I'm the
panel.
star.
I thought it was him.
We appreciate you trying to stick up for your brother. Yes, sir.
Well, okay, and this is kind of a final question, and I think that now that I think you already just gave me a thing I want to talk about. Because you said something about how nowadays we're able to have like streaming services for stuff that are than we ever had before, especially when TV was the only format that you could, or at least home video format where you can watch some of this stuff on.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing about me is that I often go on, I'm usually part of the cartoon community. I'm basically a fan of cartoons and animation in general. And one of the hot topics right now, and the one that seems to be the purest example of that, is Cartoon Network. Because recently, there's often been this, they've been coming on a little bit under fire lately with how they claim that how the shows are being treated. But apparently, one of the things people often mention is how they've been heavily promoting their app. And there is this certain channel that I watch called Rebel Taxi, and he believes that the reason why you don't see that much action cartoons or anime as much as you used to back then is because streaming is considered to be the future of how we watch things now than we did before.
Yeah.
Like, I was wondering, like, do you think it's possible that it's going to like ultimately destroy the TV format, or is it going to be like some sort of form of balance between that and streaming? Because I mean, I often have wondered that myself. Because I mean, I typically am considered myself a TV viewer. I always like to catch the new episode right when it comes on in the day. But I wonder if I can. Should I really deal with that, or having to deal with trying to get an app so that way I can just watch the whole episode on there?
I am a huge fan of streaming services. I am not a fan of piracy. I believe creators should get paid for what they do. I possibly have pirated things in my life, but mostly on the high seas, in adventure type sense, right?
Nightcrawler.
Yeah, with Nightcrawler and Jason Momoa Aquaman.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. My man. But
Pirate, bro.
Really loves Jason Momoa.
I love streaming stuff because the world's a fast, busy place. I got a busy life. Finding time to do podcasts, finding time to do the comic book videos that we do and all that stuff. I like the option of being able to watch it on my own time. I also like the option of choosing, like with CBS All Access, I'll pay the $4 extra not to have commercials. Yeah. Because I don't like commercials, but I love streaming content, right? Commercials are the best. They seriously are. It's just manipulation. Screw commercials.
But if you guys want to promote your business on our
I'm
podcast,
just
we will read
space available.
I love the ability to watch things on my own time and my own schedule. And sometimes I'm able, and you're able to just plow through things and really get absorbed into something like that. What do you guys think about it?
Well, to directly answer your question.
Yeah, please do directly.
The format, the current TV format is going to change. It's going to eventually be basically like most, or a lot of TVs you buy now are they just say monitor on them because they don't even have a tuner in them for cable anymore, mainly because you got cable box and stuff now. But it's going to be like, I think they'll still, like the major networks will still have a schedule on their live stream or whatever available, but then they'll have all the content on like CBS All Access and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's cool. I think it's great to see. And it's more affordable now, it's on the go. John?
Yeah, well, you'll see that the big studios, Disney dumped a bunch of money into Hulu, and it was a joint venture between Disney, NBC, and Fox, which now I guess will be just Disney and NBC once they acquire Fox. And they're also starting, you guys saw that, and Disney's going to start their own other channel, which is going to, I guess, compete against Hulu. I guess they weren't thinking this through when they bought Fox.
That's the one thing that is, there's too many streaming services.
Yeah, there might be too many services. I don't want to pay, be back to square one where I have 10 services at $10 a piece. I'm back to a cable bill. I have rabbit ears, and I have Hulu, and I have Netflix, and I have Amazon, and I pay for those, and I don't download or pirate anything. I watch those. I'm too cheap to pay for the Hulu without commercials, so I sit through the same damn Match commercials every time. And they're just terrible people on the Match commercials. Are these targeted commercials? Anyway, that's I might speak something else. Yeah, I think the stream's good. Subsequent, working together, and you're going to see all these big studios adding that. I don't like the fact that, for example, since I have rabbit ears and I don't have TBS, and TBS does have Conan, does have American Dad, And I can't just sign into their website and be like, oh, well, sign into your cable. I don't have a cable company. So I do think they should at least, I want other alternatives, I just don't want to pay for 50 different apps. But I guess that's where Sling comes in.
Like Sling,
now
yeah.
YouTube's doing that, now Hulu's doing that, so I don't know, I think,
where you can add on like Showtime and HBO and stuff like that. Eventually it's going to be, there's going to be a service from either a cable company or DirecTV or something like that where you just buy the channels a la carte, pay for literally each individual channel you want, and then you have packages.
I think that's the future.
And you may see Disney doing that more with ESPN, and you're going to see Disney break that up too and offer, like, I think you're going to, besides just the Disney Channel, that they're going to offer their normal property, and I think you'll see that. So as long as they do it a la carte, I think going forward everybody's going to have a, but I don't want 50 different apps, and you may not have a device that supports that, oh, Disney has their own app now, oh, it doesn't work on my Roku, it doesn't work on so-and-so. Roku's always going to support every app, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I get apps available on my TV that don't even exist anymore, homie, like Blockbuster on Demand. Oh. And I look at that button with shame.
Or anything on a sad note, we are out of time, we have to go.
I mean, to be honest, the thing is about me and the other habits is that we already went ahead and canceled Netflix and WWE Network just to save our money because, well, for one thing, I've been trying to keep homework a #1 priority now, so that's, and in some ways, that's probably one of the reasons why I've been thinking about maybe getting the CN app, because, I mean, it's one way to at least keep up with some services I didn't get to see.
We're all busy. Thank you guys for showing up. PopCulturePhilosophers.com. We're on YouTube. Comic book reviews, movie reviews, the fun, goofy podcast. If you like the banter here, you'll enjoy a whole lot more on the podcast Uncensored.
Yeah, Uncensored.
And
one of us, one or two of us are normally drunk.
Yeah. Usually about 33%.
33%. One thing I will say is that I really do like enjoying a conversation with you guys.
Well, thank you, buddy. We enjoy having a conversation with you. Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, for one thing, a lot of people have been kind of asking me to do broadcasting myself.
You got the voice for it.
Yeah, you do. The perfect voice for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 17 years old, you don't have a deep voice.
17?
Yeah.